Hi, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're listening from. I always say because globally it tend to be different time zone around the world, and naturally so even here in the United States, where Canute Exploration, your topic in the podcast is reaching out from. Different states have different time zone, and here in Miramar, Florida, it's about 1 in the afternoon, and I am Dr. Canute White. We travel a lot. Most of us, if not all of us, we go. That's how we are as social being. We go from places to places, trying to socialize and vacation, and you know even for business, and traveling is sort of a weekly or daily thing, so to speak. International travel, domestic travel for most of us, and even commuting from within your own zone. It's also traveling. So we are a traveling being. We love to travel, and that's cool because we enjoy ourselves when we travel. We meet new people, experience new culture, and this thing about in a sense diluted by our ability to travel and learn new things and appreciate new culture. And now I'm going to be talking to a guest who have been traveling. I like to call, like when we have lifelong learner like myself, right? They are lifelong travelers like Janet Foreman, and I'm going to be talking to Janet about all of this. Janet Foreman, what's up, Janet? You're a lifelong traveler, but before I go into the meat of the matter, tell us who are you really, in essence? Who's Janet Foreman?
In terms of my traveling life,
Not necessarily so. In general, who are you? What have you been doing over time?
okay. I'm a journalist. I've been a journalist for the last 30 years, and before that, I was a film producer for about 15 years. That's what I got my graduate degree in at
Ooh.
NYU. Um, I had traveling has always been in the front of my mind. I caught the bug when I was about 7,
Hmm.
and I did this very peculiar thing. As I look back on it, I I was 7, so I could hardly even really write properly. I mean, write with your hand, and I was fascinated by. I saw something. It was something like a Chinese newspaper or something, and I was, I don't know, it just sort of knocked my socks off. So I started this project about 7 years old, and I got a list of all of the foreign embassies um, in New York, and I wrote to them on a postcard, and I asked each of them to send me a um, a map of their country
Oh,
and newspaper from their country, because I wanted something to touch that was from that foreign place.
yeah.
The map so I could see the foreign place.
How old were you then, Janet? How old was that? 7?
That,
Wow. And I like you going to that because I'm going to ask you something I ask all my guests. Tell me about your childhood. Yeah, 7, we understand that whole, thing about the map and being fascinated by these countries. But tell us about your growing up. Age 5 to 15. Tell us about your growing up, your family life, and how you grew up.
well, my family life was pretty unremarkable. My father was a dentist. We
Okay.
weren't poor. We weren't rich. I had a younger sister and brother. Um, I went to very bad schools. My parents realized that you had to actually. I mean, I was very precocious, so I was in these really bad schools, and they didn't know what to do with me.
Mhm.
So what was frustrating is that I never really learned anything until I got to college or maybe graduate school.
Okay. Mhm.
And they kept switching me in grade. They didn't have a place for me.
Yeah.
Like when I was about 7 or 8 and I was in the second grade, they put me in the fifth grade.
Oh.
They thought I
Oh.
was able to do fifth grade work, which
Yeah.
I was. But I was this little girl. That's and these fifth graders, they were giants. They were giants.
Yeah, yeah. So you were one of the smaller one.
I,
You
and
were one of
I
you
didn't
were
have,
one of the smaller one.
yeah, I didn't have any friends. And I remember
Oh.
sitting in this desk that was it was a desk for a much bigger child, of course, and I was
Mhm.
like lost in this desk, and all I could see was knees. I was like up to the knees of the 10-year-old. So that didn't last too long. So
Yeah.
they put me back. I don't know, not exactly where I belong, but a year ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just didn't have the they didn't know what to do with me.
Mhm.
And that really continued until maybe graduate school.
Okay. Mhm. Mhm.
So that was kind of a big frustration in my
But
life.
but
I really,
you have turned out to be such a wonderful person, right? And experiencing the world. A lot of us are not able to do that. You know, I have not experienced so much of the world. I've been to a number of countries. Well, I'm from Jamaica. I live here in the United States. I've gone to Puerto Rico as part of the United States, and Canada and a number of other places. But you seem to have traveled so extensively,
yeah,
Janet. And before we go on to that, what is the traveling concept? What is traveling? Just give us that's conceptualize traveling for us.
yeah. It's for me, it's the rush that you get when you see something new, something that you've never
Okay.
expected, the rush of the unexpected, and then diving into it instead of
I like that.
staying away from it. Because I remember early on, my very first trip to Europe when I was about 18 years old, and I was in college, and I was on a charter flight of college students,
Hmm.
and we landed, and one other girl, she was looking around. She was very, I don't know, she was very smart.
Yeah.
She looked around and she said, "Oh, look at all the little differences." She says, "Oh, the light posts are different, and of course the people were driving the wrong way." And I mean, she pointed out all of these. She says, "I love the little differences," and she was looking at these very ordinary, mundane things that they
Right.
do in England. We were even at the airport. We weren't even at the airport yet.
Wow.
And that set my mind up for appreciating all the differences, no matter how small, and just kind of trying to seek out differences. The
Hmm.
differences. That was, she was having so much fun looking at the differences, and I said, "Oh, well,
You're
me
right.
too."
I need to ask you this, Janet. You have been traveling via commercial airlines and so on, right? I suspect cruise, different modes of traveling. But have you ever been late or too early, being so enthusiastic and being perhaps too early a day before you actually slated to fly? Or how late have you ever been? Or how early have you ever been to fly?
Oh, once, yeah, once I was going to, I think I was going to Abu Dhabi. I was going someplace in the Middle East, and this was not. I was not a child. This was
Right.
like 10 years ago. And for some reason, I misread the departure time and the time you had to be at the airport.
Okay.
And because when they use a 24-hour clock,
Oh, yeah.
they were using a 24-hour clock, and it's not that I'm not used to that. I've been
Hmm.
translate that automatically in my head, but somehow I did it wrong, and I got to the airport and, breathless, and I said, I'm sorry, did the plane leave? Did the plane leave? And the counter guy said, no, you're right on time. I get on the plane, and he says, I'll take your bag. And I get on the plane, and I walk on the plane. Of course, it was like they were just about closing the doors.
Oh.
I run on the plane, and all of my colleagues, I was traveling with a group of writers, all of my colleagues looked at me and said, what were you? Wondering where you were. And I said, I'm just going to, I didn't even want to, I was too embarrassed. But I literally, I don't know how I made such a stupid mistake at that point in my life. But the funny thing is that everybody does this. If you let me take a minute.
Okay, go ahead.
I will tell you a story about the CEO of Southwest Airlines.
Go ahead.
I was interviewing him for a story, and he said, I think the story was about the biggest mistakes you've ever made.
Right.
And he said, not too long ago, he said before I was CEO of Southwest, but I was an executive at I forget which airline. And so this guy was a very high-end airline professional. So he used to travel. His route was between, I think it was like between LA and Texas or Dallas. LA or something like that. And so he gets on the plane, and he sees, oh, they're giving us a movie. Oh, that's nice. We usually don't get a movie. And then he said, oh, they're giving me food, real dinner. We never get dinner. This is great. And it was a really long time. It was like until they were over the Rockies when he realized, I'm on the wrong plane. He had gotten on the wrong plane.
Whoa.
This guy, and he was traveling to New York. So it was a long haul flight. And of course you get, more stuff. And he said he just, somehow they let him on the flight with his wrong ticket. And I think, one of those this way for one plane and this way for another plane.
Right.
But somehow they didn't look at his ticket. The seat that he was assigned to was there. And he was the airline executive. And he couldn't believe that he had made that mistake. And, I laughed and he laughed. And he said, well, now I always really check my ticket.
Yeah, important.
But everybody makes those dumb mistakes.
Right, while traveling. Is that the enthusiasm, the joy of traveling? What causes some of these mistakes? And also, not only the mistakes, but people will turn up at the airport angry. The slightest thing, they become very angry.
What causes air rage?
No, well, there are persons who will come to the airport, will be at the airport, and they will be very angry, right?
Yeah.
But also the mistakes a matter of being enthusiastic, the joy of traveling, so it's easier to make mistakes. Tell me about that.
Well, I think we're talking about two things here.
Right.
I think when you make a mistake, it's two different things. It's whether it's your mistake or the airline's mistake.
Okay.
And more likely than not, it's the airline's mistake.
Okay.
Or the airline bumps you because they've sold too many seats. Usually it's their fault. And when it's your mistake, people just try to make the best of it if they realize and acknowledge it was their mistake.
Okay.
When the airline makes a mistake, or it causes air rage. People become enraged because they've done everything right. They've paid their money, and what now? You're saying I can't fly, because it's your mistake, or canceled flights, because they're now canceling flights
Yeah.
They say it's the weather, and it's not the weather really. It's
Hmm.
because they don't have enough crew people,
Okay.
or too many people are out sick, or the last plane was really late, and the crew people are out of time. They can't get on their next flight because their hours have run out, or there's all kinds of
Yeah.
crew issues that
Hmm.
airlines have to that can cause flights canceled, and now they're canceling slews of flights because of COVID,
Oh, yeah.
because so many of their crew
Right. Hmm.
is down with COVID, and they don't have people, they don't have pilots and flight attendants to cover the flights.
Right.
So, and there's only they have a pool, of people
Hmm.
that are ready to
Yeah.
go. That, if they run through that, which is pretty easy to run through, they have to cancel the flight.
Yeah.
And so people become enraged, and there's air rage these days
Yeah.
because in coach the seats are too
Hmm.
small, and the people are just, and also travel is stressful. Travel,
Okay. Yeah.
no matter how excited you are or eager to go, travel is stressful. You're leaving your comfort zone, you're leaving your house, God knows what
Yeah.
untied ends you've left at home, your dog, your mother, your,
Yeah.
when you leave, it's like kind of a leap of faith. You figure you've done everything you could, but you jumped off, and you jumped
Yeah.
off the diving board, and there's kind of no turning back. So,
Janet, I'm happy to talk about your air rage these days. So you're basically comparing these days to long ago, and what I'd like you to tell us about what was traveling like in the late '60s, back in the '60s. Talk to us about that and see how best we can compare it to today's traveling.
well, in some ways,
Mhm.
I would say that it's equally adventurous, but it looks very different.
Okay.
Um, in the 60s, you could go to Europe
Mhm.
and or be a European, and you could hitchhike everywhere. It was
Oh, right.
the normal thing. In fact, sometimes the on ramps for the highways were like
Mhm.
little bus depots. There were like 20 kids with backpacks, like in line. We're just standing there.
Right.
That's kind of where I had to stand so that the driver could, pull over.
Mhm.
So it was very normal, and things happened, but it was a normal thing to do. And in fact, one time I was hitchhiking. I was with a girlfriend that was about my age. We were about 18. And I
Right.
saw this young girl, hitchhiking by herself. And I walked up to her and I said, "Are you okay?" Even though I was a kid myself, I walked up to her. She looked so young, and I said, "Are you okay? Are you lost?" And she said, "No, I'm fine. I'm just hitchhiking." And I said, and she had a little bit of a accent. I said, "Where are you from?" She said, "I'm from Denmark." And I
Oh.
said, "How old are you?" That's very brave. She said, "I'm 14." So she was 14. And, I would say in Europe around that time, 14 was young, but 15,
Okay.
16-year-olds, that was normal. High school, it was normal.
Okay. Great. That was nowhere in May 2022, right? And you're listening to Canute Exploration, your topic in the podcast. I'm Dr. Canute White, and I'm speaking to Janet Foreman. Janet, we're in May 2022 now, right?
Right.
Picture now, May 2022, and back then. Would you rather to have back then coming back now, or would you rather to have some of now going back then? Would you rather to have that blend? What do you like about now?
Well, There are two. All right, I can answer it as an 18-year-old, and I can answer it
All right.
as a grown-up.
Okay.
If I was 18 and starting now, I would not be in Europe because it's way too expensive. I'd be in Asia,
Mm-hmm.
and I would be. So it's the same level of adventure. And I've been in places now. I've been in places where it's only backpackers. That's Asia, meaning Laos, Cambodia,
Mm-hmm.
Indonesia. These are places. Sometimes Thailand, but Thailand's kind of expensive.
Yeah.
So is Vietnam. But that's where the backpackers go these days, is to Asia, and they don't really hike so much as they take like local buses, um, but which are very very cheap, very cheap.
Yeah.
Uh, but a couple of years ago, I was in. This is just a couple, and of course there are cell phones now, which is
Right.
really
Mm-hmm.
helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't need maps, and you don't need books. So
Yeah.
I took books with me and would tear out when I was a kid. I would and tear out the pages of where I'd been. I'd use the Let's Go, the Harvard Let's Go thing was very good. And as I would go to, because it was made for college kids, and I would
Right.
tear out the pages as I went along on my route, so that the book got longer.
Interesting.
Anyway, I was a couple of years ago. I was in northern Thailand, and I wanted to see because I wanted to report on what they were trying to make that area, that
Mm-hmm.
tribal area of northern Thailand. They were trying to make it a tourist destination,
Okay.
and they were trying to kind of build an infrastructure, both physical and mental, among the people. And the reason they were doing that is because that was the Golden Triangle, and that's where they used to grow all the poppies.
Okay.
And poppies were their main source of sustenance. But when finally they outlawed the poppy growing, they said you should just be farmers or grow potatoes, But they couldn't grow potatoes. The soil was terrible. They couldn't grow enough of a cash crop to keep them fed, and they were just starving, and they were very poor. So they said, "Well, let's make this a tourist business, and give people a village experience and all this."
Okay.
As a grown up and as a reporter,
Yeah.
and as a business traveler, and when I went up there, they said to me. So I have to say that the end of the story is that there was no public transportation up there, and I
Wow.
hitchhiked from the airport to where I kind of to the head of this NGO place where all the NGOs were, and so they said to me, "Okay, when you get to the airport, look for a guy named Hans." I get to the airport, and I looked at every man that looked like he could be named Hans.
You're right.
There's a big head of hair and a big beard, and so they described him. Nobody looked like that. I just asked every man, "Is your name Hans? Is your name Hans?" Nobody was Hans. Finally, I sat down. The plane was 2 hours late, which always
Okay.
I sit down at a table, and there was this bald-headed guy and a woman, and I just said, "Are you Hans?" Is what I was saying to everybody.
Right.
Yes, I'm Hans. So he giving himself
Janet,
haircut.
tell me about this picture.
Tell you about.
That
Oh,
picture.
Oh.
It's not out clearly, but that's you.
That's me.
Sounds like you're on a cruise, going on a cruise or something.
No, I was in Tahiti. and I was at a small airport, and that was this small prop plane that I was
Okay.
on.
Wow. I have another photo here of you. It's
Yeah,
not clear as well, but
that's in
where's that?
that's in Brazil in Bahia.
Oh,
I was interviewing local chefs and villagers up there.
wow. Wow. You talk about local chef. What's your favorite meal? You have gone a lot of places. Which is the best meal that you have ever had traveling to different countries?
Yeah, I would say I what they did on that trip to
Mm,
Brazil
yeah.
was they and this is kind of a sociological and earth-wise experiment is
Okay.
in Brazil they have they have very rich agriculture, but their local products are dying out because they don't have a use for them. Like
Oh.
the, the first world won't eat them.
Hmm.
So what they're doing is the Michelin star chefs are going into the villages where they grow these arrowroot and things like that, and um, making village meals, like high-end village meals out of that product, and then taking the product back to their Michelin star restaurants and using the product in a very high-end modern way. So people will, so first of all, to create for um, a market for the product, and
Right.
to get city people used to these really incredible country
Hmm.
ingredients,
Yeah.
which they make the star of the dish. So
Yeah.
it's a project where you have the Michelin star chefs working with the village cooks, the village chefs with their traditional recipes and trying to help each other.
Wow. That's
And then
super.
we were
Yeah.
in a we went to a village, a really far out village, and a couple of those Michelin chefs came with us, and they cooked with the local, just what was there with the local,
Right.
which I have to say were like crabs and lobsters, and they just used their local, they cooked over
Spices and
fire
right.
and just pulled stuff from the trees. They were using primitive cooking equipment. They didn't take any. Maybe they took their knives. I don't know, but they didn't take any pots or pans or ovens or anything like that.
Where have you not gone yet that you'd have loved to go?
Well, let's see. Where would I like to?
Can I put words in your mouth? Jamaica. What about?
I've been to Jamaica.
Oh, you have been there.
I was there a long time ago when I was in my 20s. The Caribbean, I don't know. The whole Caribbean is a little too close.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand that.
I do want to go to Uruguay.
Hmm.
There are some fabulous beach communities that are sort of hipster communities
Yeah,
in Uruguay, and
yeah.
it's kind of from what I understand, it's the most European
Okay.
place in South America, even though it's right in the middle of South America. Even more so, they say, than Argentina, which is extremely European. They say Uruguay is
Yeah,
very, very European, even more European.
yeah. Wow.
And I have to go to Sri Lanka, but there's so much trouble there.
I know, right? Tell me though, what are some of the tips that well, yes, you have tips for them, but what would a great traveler never do? Right? Let's look at it from that perspective. A great traveler like you,
Yeah.
what would that person never do because of being a great
Are you
traveler?
talking about warnings or don't do things like take
Don't right.
photos?
Don't okay. There are travelers who are lifelong travelers like you. You love doing it, and you are out there traveling. but there are some things that you will never do because of who you are as a traveler. What are some of those things that you would never do because you're such
Well,
a great traveler?
I would okay, one thing I would never do in general, any place, is to insult
Okay.
or embarrass or make the locals uncomfortable because you are a guest in their country. You are their guest, and you have to be a good and respectful guest. And that takes a little bit of study because there are things that would embarrass them or they would not look kindly on that you have no idea. For example, when you go to the Middle East,
Yeah.
they don't make me wear, they wouldn't make me cover up
Right, right,
unless
right.
I'm like Saudi Arabia or something. But
Yeah.
they wouldn't make me cover up, but they conceive of it as indecent if you
Yeah.
show your arms
Oh,
and shoulders,
yeah, yeah.
and they don't like it when you show your knees.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And so even though it's blazing hot there,
Yeah, yeah.
you have to find clothes that will cover you up and keep you cool.
Mm.
So my normal wardrobe is jeans
Yeah,
and or gym pants,
yeah,
and I can do neither of them would work there because they're too revealing.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I had to discover cargo pants,
yeah.
which are light and loose. And the other thing that I was never aware of until I was told is you should never wear sunglasses when you enter a temple.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
this is especially in Thailand because they can't see your eyes. And if they can't see your eyes, if they feel you're hiding something.
Yeah.
Um,
Hey,
I never know that. I would
Janet,
never.
their culture, so in terms of cultural diversity, we understand that because you're a traveler and you understand the concept of cultural diversity, right? And but what is this one cultural cultural context that you have seen that you're saying, oh, really?
Yeah, well, in the Middle East, they have an extraordinary sense of hospitality. I
Okay.
mean, and it comes from living in a harsh climate.
Mhm, mhm.
So the rule of the road, or not the rule of the road, this goes far, far back. This goes to
Yeah.
ancient times. Because the environment is so harsh,
Hmm.
you must, if a traveler comes along, and so you've got your tent in the desert, in the middle of the desert, and if a
Hmm.
traveler comes along, even if you don't know him or her, or he's from an enemy tribe,
Yeah, yeah.
you must give him food and shelter for him and his family and his animals for 3 days. And that's because if you didn't, everybody would die.
Yeah.
Um, they they have that in their history,
Yeah.
and because of that, they have this incredible welcoming attitude. And I was in the desert with a local guy that lives there. He was actually Swedish, but he lived there for a long time. Anyway, he was just,
Mhm.
hey, he took me out and was showing me the camel. We went to the camel
Right.
race. We went to all kinds of places. And then we saw, a lot of the locals, they have these beautiful gardens that they really, like these jewel box gardens that they somehow grow in the desert. I don't know how they do it.
Wow.
And and he said, "Oh, let's go take a look at that." And we drive closer, and then there's a gate,
Yeah.
closed gate. And I said, "Oh, I guess we can't go." He says, "No, no, 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 it's okay." I said, "I don't think it's okay. I think I see a closed gate. He says, no, don't worry. And so he opens the gate and we
Right.
drive down this pretty long road
Mhm.
to the garden. And then we're looking at the garden, and then this guy comes running out of a nearby tent, comes running down the road, running.
Wow.
And I said, oh, we shouldn't be here. And the guy with me said, no, it's okay. And the guy gets up to us. He has his hand on his head because he ran out so fast he forgot to put on
Yeah.
his headdress thing. And he said, and I started sort of apologizing. He says, oh, no, we want you here. We love you here. And you look at I'm very proud of my garden. He said, but I just have to tell you, don't touch that camel because he bites.
Oh.
I wanted to warn you not to touch the camel because camels are pretty docile
Yeah.
usually. And
Okay.
if they're around people. He said, just don't go near that camel because he'll bite you. And then he invited us into his tent, and he did this whole coffee and tea welcoming ceremony it took like an hour, and it was this very ritualistic. He makes coffee, like Turkish coffee, and then he spills it on the ground, and he does that 3 times, and then he makes tea.
Wow.
And I wasn't even sure what I was supposed to do. And here I was, a woman. I kind of figured I should take off my shoes, but that was
Mhm.
all I knew. And it was like bungee jumping into a different culture. So I was watching
Like that.
my guide and doing what he did. And I said, when do we stop drinking coffee? And he says, you don't. You just drink it.
Hey, have you ever gone to Japan?
What's that?
Japan. Have you ever been to Japan?
Oh, yes, many times.
Tell me. Well, naturally, I've never gone to Japan, but I saw in the culture these small cups that you would drink tea from, right? Do they really exist as a fairy tale? These small cups.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
yeah. It's all over Asia. They drink tea from tiny cups that almost look like sake glasses.
Yeah.
And they do that for sure in Japan. It's part of the tea ceremony.
Okay.
And that's very common. You'll see it all over.
Oh, so it's a ritual. It's sort of a ritual.
They use it in the ritual, but very often you'll be served tea in those tiny cups. I mean, it's made for the ritual, but sometimes just style-wise, they give you these small cups.
Okay, interesting. My audience listening on their favorite podcast platform, I'd like to hear this, and it's very interesting. Some of the experiences that you have had. Those watching a Canute Expression on our YouTube channel, Canute Media. Welcome. I'm Dr. Canute White, and I'm talking to Janet Foreman, lifelong traveler. Janet, it appears like as if there are several types of vacation. I'd like you to tell us the types of vacation that there are, and which is your favorite type of vacation.
Okay, my favorite type of vacation now, which is different from when I was a kid, is when I go with my husband, we rent a house someplace, and we just stay there for at least a week. And if we're away for longer, we rent another house in another place, maybe nearby, or depending on what we want to do. But we rent houses because we like to feel like we like to make believe that we're locals living there, and then you can go into markets and you can buy the food and you can and in fact I have an Airbnb in my house here in New York.
Okay.
So I welcome travelers from all over the world that want to do the same thing.
Where are you? Tell us again, where are you?
New York, in Harlem.
Okay, so you welcome travelers who want to, because you have Airbnb there, right? You're renting homes there.
I rent through Airbnb, and Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, my listeners, the audience will see in the description a number, contact. They can contact you. You know, they're welcome to do that.
They can. The best way is to go to my website, which is janetforeman.com, and they'll see a link to my email,
Right.
and they'll see a lot of my stories and my pictures, and they'll see everything more than they ever wanted to know about me, and and they can contact me through my website.
Yeah, that's interesting. I have just a few more questions before I leave you. But tell me, what are the most important lessons you have learned from your years of traveling? You know, that one lesson that is very, very important that you have learned.
Well, one lesson. Uh,
We understand the cultural diversity and the lesson that you have learned from this diverse culture around the world. But
the funny thing is that I've learned these aren't lessons that I would say to somebody, do this or don't do
okay,
that. But
yeah,
what I learned about myself was that I am very comfortable being in a place where I don't look like anybody else.
yeah, oh yeah,
In Africa, in Asia,
yeah,
in Europe, I just blend in. But in Africa and Asia, and I realized that it wasn't even in my head that I looked
yeah,
different. I was in a Japanese market with some friends and who lived there, and there were Americans
yeah,
and
yeah,
not Japanese. And we got this huge market, and we got separated, and they were kind of behind us, and finally we kind of found each other again, and I said, "Oh wow, I thought we'd lost you forever," and they said, "Oh no, everybody knows where you are." We stuck out so much, and it never even occurred to me that people. um, so I find that one reason I'm able to travel easily is that I don't mind being
yeah,
different in wherever I go. People are usually kind, usually.
yeah, 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 yeah,
And I also realize how very poor
yeah,
the educational system is in the United States.
yeah,
Because when I was a teenager and I started traveling, and I met two guys that are still my friends, and I was 18 years old, and they're still my friends in the 60s, and they were still in. I was almost finished with college, and they were still in the gymnasium in high school because it takes longer to get through the
yeah,
gymnasium, high school, and college, and they knew I was like 4 years ahead of them educationally, and they
right,
were 2 years older than me, or a year and a half older. They knew so much more than I did about everything. Everything. They could read Greek, they could read Latin, they knew all the history of this, and I felt like an idiot, and
yeah,
as soon as I got home, I just started, even though my schools were awful, I just started reading like crazy. I'd always been a big reader, but I just started
mhm,
reading up on all of those things that they knew and I didn't, just to feel like I could catch up, because I was going to, of course, they're still my friends. So I knew next time I'm going to know a little, maybe not so stupid.
hey,
And just went on this just read about I read philosophers, I read ancient history, I read.
mm, yeah. You know, I want to ask you this: where have you ever been, and you believe that, hey, I am not going back. I love this place. I don't want to leave. I'm gonna stay here. Tell me about that place.
I don't want to leave. Yeah. Well, a couple places. First of all, Amsterdam, when I was in between college and graduate school, and I didn't leave.
Yeah, yeah,
I stayed for a year. in between college and graduate school, and then
Right.
I toyed with the idea of staying, but I had been accepted to this really good
College.
school, and I wanted to go back and get my master's and all that.
Love
So I
that.
went home, and then but I still kept going back and forth. But that's because Amsterdam was like a second home to me, and I had all these friends there.
Yeah.
Another place is Italy. The people are so loving. They're very loving, and I feel it can be very chaotic. You know, the laws, you can't really follow the law in Italy because the laws conflict, and I'm told, it's the way they can catch mafia people.
Yeah.
You're always breaking some sort of law. You know, you can't break, follow this, not break that one. So people just do what they think is right, and they use that to catch, to arrest people that they want to arrest. Like
Right.
the mafia. But so, and Italy can be very chaotic, and you have to check and recheck and make sure that the sign is pointing to the place it's really going, and make sure the train schedule you have is actually, you have to go to the station maybe sometimes and see, and is this really going to happen? Yeah, so it can be, it's not always organized. And
I'm sure you have read about Jamaica.
yes,
I'm gonna push Jamaica in there because you know I'm Jamaican, and a lifelong traveler like you, I want your opinion on Jamaica. How do you sell Jamaica?
How would I spell Jamaica?
How do you sell Jamaica?
I can't really answer that question. I was in Jamaica and I was in my 20s, and I don't think I ever went back. And one thing I remember, we didn't really have any money, so we stayed in some sort of homestay or something. And I remember what I thought was delightful was, and there were chickens and and things that we were like in a little room in a little house and kind of thing. And the owner, the woman, we left, and maybe we left the light on when we left the house, and she said very nicely, please close the light because the current is high. So it took me a minute to figure out when she said what she meant. The current is high. We don't say it like that.
Right.
And we also don't think about, well, now we think about electricity because they're crazy.
Yeah.
In the United States, you don't think about.
You don't think about that much. Yeah.
It doesn't. So I learned a couple of things. I learned that it was expensive for her and disrespectful in a way to do something sloppy like leave a light on. So I learned that lesson. And I just learned, that is, it's like a lot like the rest of the Caribbean, but it wasn't a tourist. We couldn't really afford the tourist places. So, I'm sorry, I can't really sell.
No, that's all right, Janet. It depends on where in Jamaica, though, that you have gone. Because Montego Bay, I'm inviting you to go back, though, because things might change a whole lot. Well, I've changed a whole lot, I'd say, and the beaches are fascinating. I'm not sure if you had gone to any of the beaches, and it's
in Port Antonio, which was.
Oh, you were in the east, Port Antonio. If you had gone to the west, like Negril, Montego Bay, wow.
I was kind of all over, and I liked it. But and I love reggae music. Reggae is what I exercise to. It's on my my Pandora. I have all reggae channels.
Right. Cool.
I like to exercise to that.
Yeah. So I'm inviting you to take a trip back to Jamaica, Janet, right? And I'm sure this time when you go, the east is great. It's greenery because a lot of rainfall that side, Portland. but if you go to Montego Bay, you would have heard about Montego Bay
Yeah,
and Negril, that side. It's really more tourist attraction, right? So it was touristy for
right.
you if you go that side. So please, Janet, go back to
Okay,
Jamaica, right? But
right.
I tell you this, you're such an amazing person, and you have learned so much around the world, and I would have loved to have traveled, or intend to travel like you. Yeah, but not many of us are able to do that, and it's good that someone like you, a woman who is very adventurous, and gotten the chance to do so much travel, extensively, and I'm very proud of you. Have you stopped though? You calmed down on the traveling, or you still?
But no. Well, COVID
Oh
certainly,
yeah,
yeah, put a crimp in it. I mean, I have to say, I really haven't traveled extensively or
yeah.
almost at all since COVID because you can't. Um, you can't. You just can't. It's the kind of traveling that I want to
Yeah,
do, the exploration, and I also need to write articles about it. And all the travel magazines have shrunk,
yeah.
and a lot of my outlets have gone away. And like the New York Times now does one page instead of a whole section.
Oh, yeah,
And the magazine where I was an editor has stopped publishing. And
yeah.
so I need places that I can go and write about and publish.
Hmm, hmm.
So COVID has been really
Yeah.
um, terrible, but
Impediment. Yeah,
I'm seeing like a parting of the clouds.
yeah, yeah.
So soon, I hope.
Yeah, I'm hoping so too. Just tell me about it via email. But let me, before I end with you, can you tell us your contact? I know I had your email address running across the screen earlier. That's Janet.Foreman@gmail.com. But what are the other contacts that you'd like the audience to know about?
They should go to my website and they'll learn a lot from my website, which is janetforeman.com.
Okay. All right. And they'll be able to contact you. Hey, Janet, it was so nice talking to you. I enjoyed it. I learned a bit of travel concept from you. Thanks for coming. And Canute Exploration, your topic in the
Thank
podcast.
you for having me. Okay, bye
Bye
bye.
bye. So that was Janet Foreman. You heard her. She's a very fascinating person, very adventurous. She travels a lot, and I'm hoping that you continue to travel, and I know will write about traveling in this century, right? Especially during COVID, or because we're still in a pandemic and a lot of things have changed. I hope that Janet will leave a book for us to read about what's going on during COVID that is related to travel. This is Canute Exploration, your topic in the podcast. I'm Dr. Canute White. Just talk to Janet Foreman, lifelong traveler. I'll see you. Goodbye.